for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today, and a message that I will share through spirit as much as I can. So today is actually a super cold day here after the last week when the weather was kind of heavenly. We have another cold winter wave, and we have huge, like major portal winds blowing today. So I don't know how much you'll be able to hear me, and it's pretty cold, but I'm just guided to stay here and sit and record the message anyway. So I hope I make it alive though, because it's pretty cold. But it's just kind of representative of the circumstances we're in now. They seem pretty harsh and cold and distant and isolated for so many of us. And we're all kind of dealing with difficulties at this time, each on our own, you know. The question is how we will see that as opportunities. So today I want to talk about some of the things that Spirit has been sharing with me. It's kind of difficult to move my lips though, because my face is kind of frozen from the wind, but I'm going to do my best. It's like we all feel not just being slowed down, but there are certain restrictions that are affecting all of our lives. And I told you I already live in a very isolated space. We don't have stores nearby unless you have a car, and I don't, you know, for a year and a half or so, for reasons that, you know, that are my own, I guess. And, you know, we can't predict certain things that will unfold the way they do when they do. And I was just feeling into this challenging aspect of life at this time, because today I was having this first hitting you hard kind of wave of, oh, this is what it is now. And we don't know, you know, because in the beginning we're like, yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks and then everything's going to go back to normal. And the question then arises, yeah, but what if not, you know? What if we have to maintain this state for a while? And for those people who are just living their lives status quo, the usual, they have their means of transportation, and that's fine. You know, in my case at this time, that's not so. And I don't know where to get my food supplies. So now we're running out, and it's like a little bit like, oh, you know, and people are scared in their own bubbles and they have their own thing, and you don't really always feel that support. And the message that was coming through was have that unconditional love and faith anyway, because there's hidden blessings in all of this. So the thing is, we don't often see those things as opportunities to grow inner sustenance. And this is what I want to talk about today, and to make the shifts that perhaps we weren't able to do before. You know, let's say we've all had ideas about certain diet, and, you know, our diets are always shifting. Our diets don't just shift by us becoming vegan, let's say, or, you know, there's types of vegan, and there's levels of us going deeper into more and more light foods. And sometimes, you know, these natural changes and unfoldings of events will lead us into certain circumstances that will be like little triggers, little buttons that we can either push respond and feel the call to action or not. And we're going to have to get more creative and more deeply present with what our guidance wants and desires from us at this time, instead of feeling a lack of support and sustenance. You know, in my life, I've always had to be alone for most of the things. And when I was in the moment of being in it, I often felt non-supported. I always felt I'm just this stranger here on earth. No one really cares about me. Physically, I don't have anyone to support me. I never had like a specific strong masculine presence in my life. And it was always just, you know, having to build this interdependent relationship within myself and the world I lived in, and getting very resourceful. You know, it's easier when in the summer months when nature is quite abundant, and it's easier to get certain foods from nature as well, you know, if you're very good at those things. But it's not always so. And our environment is often harsh too, and colder. Like today, I just felt that with all of this craziness, it's not just physically what we talk about, this virus and diseases and things like that, but like emotionally imagine how much is coming through at this time to be cleansed. And I live in this portal area where first everything starts to originate energetically and wreak its havoc, right? So when we have these major threshold, like coming to the surface, these strong winds, it's a strong message of things really bubbling up and wanting to change something. And there's like this cleansing energy today. I even felt it because I was crying a bit, and I felt, what is this? It's just coming through, and we're all experiencing different levels of this, you know, like there's stages of grieving, and this is not just grieving of, oh, you know, we don't have our lives the way we used to, but in totality, in general, grieving like what we're leaving behind. And it takes time, you know, and it takes adaptation phases, like different levels, and it's just normal. It's a part of the process, like in every other aspect of our life. Anyway, what I was saying is things take time. So today with this, I want to go into a message that Spirit shared with me about the nature of how we're actually called to expand to the next stage, and how this might look for us if we're willing to take the next step. But first thing I want to say, I felt really kind of like a bit sad for the past, let's say, few days, because I didn't feel I have the same connection with my light team as I usually do. But you know, I've been feeling it throughout the winter, but there are certain stages when I feel it more intensely. And it's just, you know, our light teams are very busy at this time with different things and things that are happening at higher levels of creation. And sometimes because of that, when we do our work on Earth and we don't always have this direct communication link, it feels kind of isolated. For me, that's always the worst cause of sadness, when I don't feel that instant connection. It's like, you know, it's the inner has to be dealt with first. It's your first source. And if that isn't so, those moments you might feel a little bit of deprived of that. So when I tuned into that and I said, you know what, I don't really feel you guys anymore. I said, I really want you. I said, I have a deep desire for you to send me a message today that no matter what, and if I have like difficulty in reaching you, because sometimes it's not that we have a blockage in our internal connection, as you well know. Sometimes it's just a lot happening now on Earth, and these different waves as energetic currents are having an effect on our connections, whether we want it or not. You know, we can always connect to the inner dweller, the inner self. It's like it's always there, you know, the inner presence. But these bigger networks of light, sometimes they feel a little bit more distant to us, although, you know, it's just a perception. But it's physically, sometimes these energetic currents do have an effect, and we will feel that. So I asked, and I said, I want today already for you to send me a message that you're still there, and I'm not abandoned, and I'm not just left here, you know, with these conditions, you know, and in case this really hits the fan, you know, I'm not with my family again, either way. And I was already in the burst of the tears, and I was walking through this meadow, and it was so cold. I almost said, why am I even outside? It's freezing. It's terrible, you know, and the wind, it's like worse than just having like minus degrees or something like that. It's just like the wind can get so cold, like it's terrible. Wow. It's like it's all around me and I'm still here. I don't know why I'm recording. It's crazy. Maybe the energy wants to be transmitted to the channel of the World Wide Web. I don't know. But either way, I asked him for this message, and I was walking the meadow, and I was already at the verge of tears, and I come there and I find this buzzard feather, and you know, that's my spirit animal, and I haven't found one for such a long time, truly, this winter time, and it's like the first one this year. And I find it, and I burst into tears, of course, because I knew it was them, like signaling me it's all fine and they're still there. And it was kind of laughing, crying, both at the same time, like now. So I just wanted this feather to be with us. So maybe I do something like, I don't know, put it in a hat, if it's possible. Okay, might be. Either way, what I want to say is that I was actually doing quite a lot of research this weekend about this whole topic, because I wanted to have an outpouring of different variations of this understanding of what's happening, because you know, different sources know different things and have different approaches, and we've talked about the layering of this experience, how there's levels and levels and layers, and it's not just one reality happening, because we're all creating our own. So when we go too much into one aspect of reality, it can quickly become our own and like entangle us. There's a law of entrainment that exists, like anything pulls us it's like if enough magnetism is pulled in that direction, that suddenly we're a part of that vortex, even though we all have our own. So it's always important to come back to our vortex. And I usually do that in deep breathing meditation. I just sit, I show up, and I instantly start spinning. The moment I start breathing, it's very natural to me. The next important step is going into our hearts, which is not just thinking about being heart-centered, but there's a very simple meditation where you just sit. You can even put your hand on the heart, do a breathing into the heart, like you're breathing instead of the lungs with your heart, and you can even imagine a hole of air coming into it, just breathing in and out. And in the next level, you can even imagine your mind dissolving more and more and kind of like being coagulated and moved into the heart space, so that more and more of what you call the self is merged in the heart. It's not like your mind is now devoid of its purpose. It's just like there's a more merging and bridging of the experience of heart-mind connection. And the last important step is really being present in this moment. We already know that, right? But there's something else Spirit wanted to talk about, because when I was doing all this research, I went really deep into it and I watched quite a lot of videos. And I don't want to share anything about that. I don't want to talk about these conspiracies and different theories, because you know what? Everyone can do their own research. If that's your call, if that's your guidance, go and do it. I'm not here to quote other people's work. You know, there's so many people now making their contributions. I don't think there's anyone from any kind of impact right now or online presence that hasn't made a video or statement about this, and they each shared something valuable, right? But the point is still that those who are here with me watching, you know that my work is physical, illumined, union, ascension, and that this reality, this 3D complex, which is still so focused in duality, and this elite wanting to push this part of reality onto all of the humanity and just building their own empire and things looking a certain way and pushing these agendas like Agenda 21, you know, by 2030, us living packed in cities and no one lives in rural areas anymore, and we're all under this constant surveillance and microchipped, and you know, we're all vaccinated and we're like half AI or robots. You know, it sounds kind of science fiction-y in a way, but these papers, these documents exist, and there's people talking about it, and then they're sharing. If you want to find out, just go and do your research. And a lot of things we're calling conspiracy theories, they're just theories. They're not conspiracies in truth. It's just that the assumptions that a lot of these people that are doing this work are making, they're also based on a certain assumption. We don't know everything. That's the point I want to make here, is that those who are in the physical ascension communities, those people who are doing the work first within, no matter what's happening on the outside, because that's truly what Christ consciousness means, is that whatever is on the outside, the Christ lives within you. And even if you're like half dying in terms of external circumstance, it's like no one can take that away from you, because that was your first choice. That's the importance of that. So instead of going through these resources and sharing with you, I actually do want to share one because I thought it was pretty good. And it's by this woman called Susan Ashley. She's from Australia. I know her for a while now. I didn't watch her videos for quite a long time now, but I've recommended, I think, this channeling. She does this group channeling of beings calling themselves as a group, Cassandra. And you can find her channel on YouTube. It's called Susan and Cassandra, and it's spelled with a K and a double S. And you will find these transmissions because they made one about this virus. They made one about this fighting for the light now. They did all of these updates with a lot of interesting information, not just what's happening from a higher perspective, from their perspective, but also what we can do about it. And there were some great things being shared there. So I do want to reference that source. But there's also other people, right? I want to say now, for those in the Ascension community, it is becoming vitally important now at this time that our Ascension doesn't stop just because things seem to be on hold, and because we might have a next installment or an implementation of this Agenda 21, or, you know, there's like, it's happening in increments, this NW order. I'm not going to say these words because you know what? I'm finding out that there's so much prohibition now on YouTube. I keep reading a lot of comments too. I didn't just watch videos. I took this weekend to do this fine research, right? That was my weekend. All I did was that. And it kind of exhausted me, truly, to be honest. But it's something that my soul just wanted to do. My inner child really wanted to do that research. So I did. And I listened to my guidance. So, the conclusion I came to was that even in spite of all those comments, and people, as you know, they have a lot of theories and everyone is making this statement and they're stamping with their own assumptions. It's like a lot of different materials were referenced there, and, you know, people are starting to think with their own minds. That's good. But it's still different with ascension. It's still different when you're on the path of physical ascension and resurrecting the Christ from within. Why is it different? Because, like I told you, there's several layers of reality that are now unfolding on this planet, and they simply must, whether we have anything to do with it or not, whether we put our energy focus there or not. But I've told you this before, when a certain amount of light quotient is put there, even just with our energetic presence, it's like we can quickly feed off enough energy to, you know, dive into that experience and forget what our path is. Even if it's just temporarily, we fed a portion of our light quotient there. And our light energy essence and the way we conduct life force through our bodies, as you know, is the most invaluable resource. It's the most important energetic currency beyond any other currency there is. You know, as you know, in the new age now, everyone is teaching abundance, the law of how to manifest money. This has become such an obsession. It's like people are even losing this deep aspect of what the greatest currency is, our life force, our truest essence. And when it becomes more precious, it's even more so precious, right? Spirit wanted to remind those of you who are in the path of ascension to not think ascension is not stopping. You know, see, the wind's blowing so intense it's going to blow me off. This is seriously, have you guys seen this? Have you guys seen this? I was blown away. There was all these leaves coming into my face. It was like, oh, it's happening again. And my camera fell down. It's like, in your face. Wow. So anyway, I wanted to say is that we need to follow our own reality. And I'm going to talk about this more on Patreon. I'm also going to do a special meditation, no matter what tier level you're on or at. I want to keep a meditation focus more for the group level, because these are people who are actually devoted to this process. And you know, on YouTube, there's a lot of people who just come and go and watch, and they take it for granted. So I'm going to leave that deeper work, as always, for the group, those who are willing to do this work for ascension. But I wanted to say this work now is about us remembering we're creating our own reality. And if that's the reality of physical ascension, if that's what you're chosen, it's like we need to hold this vision no matter what. No matter how much we feel like, oh, squeeze, oh, but what if this really happens? Well, we don't know, right? And we don't get to see, because none of us has all the knowledge or all the information of the general overview of the happening or on Earth. But there's greater forces at work at the same time, and we need to continuously pull in that highest perspective, stay vigilant with that awareness, and keep on connecting to that higher perspective, which is our desire for physical ascension. And for us to stay devoted is not just to stay devoted when things are light, it's to stay devoted to this path even when things feel like, oh my God, it's something else will be enslaved upon us or pushed upon us, this and that agenda. Well, this work does not stop. Like Spirit said, ascension does not stop because of that. In fact, it actually goes much deeper if you're willing, if we're wanting to. So they gave me 3 simple words, guidelines that are important for this time for us to connect at the higher level, which are 3 C's, which is funny, C. And it's first, it's consciousness, right? It's to be really super conscious of everything, of yourself in every moment, your full presence. Second is connection, connected to your higher source, to your light intelligence, highest origin of the Christed holy essence, and your light family, your soul family or oversoul complex. And the third is connectivity, which is building a wider network of light with those on this path. That's why a while ago I shared a video about the importance of Christ community. This is so important. It's not something we can overlook just because the state of conditions are such and such. So when I was doing my research, after all that I've browsed through and listened to, and my head was so full, you know, at the end, my conclusion was, I'm back to what I feel about this, you know? And sometimes we need to do that. It's like you do a little detour just to see what else is out there. because my work is also seeing, like, sometimes I just need to view realities at the wider level, but then I always need to bring that back to the center. I need to go make a circle and bring it back to the core. And the core is always the same, right? We have to be aware first. Everyone is nowadays teaching we're conscious co-creators, yes, but are we really taking a full responsibility to our lives? Because even if just one tiny fractal portion of us is saying, yeah, but what if this happens, but what if they will push this upon us, upon me, upon, you know, those I love, this and that, even that tiny part needs to now come back and absolutely trust this path, physical ascension. This is not something of a wishy-washy. This is not like you pretending the rest doesn't exist. But you need to acknowledge that reality is always layered. Reality is not like absolute. The absolute truth is only that which is in eternal realms. It's pure source. But the infinite creation knows so many layers. The reality is always layered, and it has aspects of dimensional density to it, and we already have a different density than the majority of the people. So our reality and the views upon it are already different, and we need to keep on remembering that. And it's not just because every day you wake up and you do pull a few oracles and you meditate and drink your tea and do some yoga. No, that's why I do this higher ascension work on Patreon, which is more devoted to really working within the light body intelligence and that consciousness. So this year I feel there will be more devotion put into a more practical sense. And just recently I talked to someone who's in the group, and we talked about this nature of giving assignments and like homework to more consciously engage with what's coming through instead of just being a passerby, right? Because a lot of people are witnessing what's happening, but they themselves are not like walking through it. And I know there's waves of ascension in people when they're ready stepping on this path, but at the same time, this now is such an unprecedented opportunity for us to step really on it, like better than ever before, stronger than ever before. So when we feel we're even more isolated than before, conditions are harsher, perhaps reality feels a little wobbly, that's usually when Spirit is saying, engage deeper. And of course, it will take a while. I know that, you know, it's like when you're put in a room, empty room, and first you're like, I don't know what to do with myself, and you do a few circles around their room. You first feel entrapped, you feel like you're in a prison, you feel challenged. But then eventually, I don't know, maybe you start using your body, or you start dancing, and then I don't know, maybe you pick up you see something there, or you I don't know, like, you know, in those old movies when they started carving things on the wall, those prisoners. I'm not saying we're prisoners, we're definitely not. Sometimes, because reality can feel harsh, because I've told you this before, these dimensional densities are in a way, they're serving each other within the merge, because the light and the dark, they have to dance their dance, and we as individuals don't have an actual say on how this will play out, like as a collective. But as individuals, what we choose, we have an absolute conscious sovereign choice of how that will play out, and that's the choice we are making. So if you honestly say to yourself, I'm not going to be a slave of that kind of society where everything is pushed upon me, when everything that exists is martial law, and that's it. And of course, because you already feel you haven't chosen that, and you're not choosing that. There's people who don't even know what that is, and these are probably the most risky categories of people who might be prone to that if it eventually comes to that. But what I'm saying is, we don't have a bigger picture of how things will unfold in terms of where our density will be at the time when something like that happens, or things conjunct within each other. Even in the Bible, I'm not a Bible reader, but I know the story of the New Testament, and this story of was it a vision given by, I don't know who, but it's basically about what Jesus shares about this end times, right? And how things will look like when it's like the worst, right? And for a while we live out through the worst, and then eventually there's like this battle, right? But it's not like we ourselves are battling these higher forces. It's like I see it like it happens at the higher level. Just like everything that comes into matter is first occurring within essence, and then becoming more and more structured, getting more structure, right? And then eventually rootedness in this physical reality. But because it's not the job or assignment of most people to be within that domain of this overarching knowing of all. We are here to focus on our individual aspect of ascension, whatever that is for you, because again, we're still approaching it differently. Like, we're here at different angles of the ascension experience. Like those of us like me who are volunteer souls, we came here to also do this with the planet. So we came here as the first wave when this would be triggered, this change within the planetary core. And then the second wave would follow it, but eventually it would just be one wave. It's not like it's like a separation, just creating more diversion. It eventually would lead to a union of all of this life that's being pulled into this new trajectory of the spiral of ascension path. But what is occurring within this darker polarity ascension, right? This view is also something that, if you're looking at everything from a greater lords of karma and this greater karmic unfolding, it's also like they have their own place. They also have their own learning. And we're kind of not responsible for that, but at the same time, we are influencers for how that's happening as on the front line of the light. It's like how the merger takes place collectively, we're not in charge of, like greater forces are. But what I'm saying is, what Spirit is giving here as a message is we need to focus on these things that matter, which is holding the vision, 3 C's that I've told you about: consciousness, connection, and connectivity, because it's important to start building these networks of light, because we're needing to learn to build our own light grid instead of constantly thinking how this dark matrix grid will affect us in the long run. Instead of being smart and saying, wow, you know, they're doing it their own way, that's fine. They're creators, right? Either way, however that way. The problem is when the majority of the people who are in this gray area zone, they're not doing anything. They're not even within the light or the dark. So if you're going to listen to the channeling I recommended to you from Cassandra Group, they talk about this gray level zone. It's like basically it's 96% of people. That's the most challenging, because these people are just living the status quo reality all the time. And the percentage of the light ones is a little larger than the dark. But it's not so much about the numbers. It's about light quotient. It's about divine intelligence that we're bringing through. And so at this time, it's the most important to start building these light grids, because as a collective of those within the Christ, we can do much more than each individual. But it takes first 2, consciousness and connection, to build the inner network, and then the third one as connectivity to co-create within the group dynamic. And the group is more powerful always as the individual. That's what the true soul nature is, the oversoul complex, because it holds aspects of different uniqueness that contribute to the whole. That's why it's more powerful. It strengthens the whole. So I'll talk about this, and I'm going to do this first meditation transmission on Patreon as always. If you're ever guided to join, you're more than welcome. I have to go now because I'm freezing. And I know, like I said before, there's a lot of censorship happening as well on YouTube, and people are even talking about videos being put down, and then they're using now this time as an excuse to say, oh, we don't have much staff, to maintain this, so we're going to start deleting the videos. I don't know which videos will go. If one day my videos go, I just know I wasn't the one who deleted them. No way. Things are happening. We don't have control over that, but we do have ultimately entire control and responsibility in that case of our own life force. That's basically the only responsibility and true control we do have. And what's happening in the outside control is just a mirror of people allowing themselves to be controlled, truly. Because as you can see, what's being witnessed now is a lot of people are willingly giving their own free will away and saying, yes, please save us, rescue us, because we feel so unsafe and uncertain. Oh my gosh, I have a feeling like a tree will tear down and on me, so I really have to go. Anyway, guys, either way, I need to stay safe. That's a priority if you want more videos to come in the future. Either way, thank you for staying here. There's always so much love, wisdom, and power, and I really hope I didn't catch a cold though. So I'll see you, and as always, so much love. Bye for now.